Students, I think you're going to enjoy the special ceramic project that we're going to be working on today. This is a project idea that I saw on Red TED Art, and I thought it had a great balance of building skill, creating a pinch pot, and also making something beautiful that you can use. This could be filled with candy for Valentine's Day or special words of kindness to share with others. So to begin, let's take a look at the supplies you're going to need. If you're working with me in class, you're going to receive a ball of clay that looks like this. If you are working at home, you're going to receive a ball of this kind of clay, which is air dry clay. This can be completed entirely at home. This one, you need access to what's called a kiln, or a special oven that's used to heat up clay and make it solid. You're also going to need some water. I gave you some sculpting tools and your rubric for reference. Let's take a look at the goals for this project. The main description is students will sculpt a brightly colored candy dish, or as I said, it could hold something else to celebrate Valentine's Day. These are the specific learning targets or skills that we're going to be assessing ourselves on. First, we're going to see if you can use hand building skills to make a pinch pot, and that pinch pot has an even base and edges. We're going to see if you can smooth that heart to give it a high quality finish. We're also looking to see if you can paint that dish with 2 solid layers and a design of your choice. And finally, as always, I'm looking to see if you give your dish its own creativity or sparkle, and that you are using excellent craftsmanship. Let's get started. We're going to begin the sculpting process with how to make a pinch pot. Because most of the students that are learning this lesson are in school, I am going to use our regular clay. However, those of you with air dry clay can follow the same directions. All right, so it's important when you make a pinch pot that you start with a sphere. Now, sometimes kids are tempted to really overwork this to make an exactly perfect, almost like a ball. We don't want to do that too much, because as you handle clay, it dries out. And so you'll notice that you start to see cracks, almost like elephant skin and wrinkles. So the first step in making a pinch pot is to use your thumb, and I can help you with this if you need help, to make a hole. Now, when we say pinch, sometimes kids think about the movement being like this, like how you might pinch someone on St. Patrick's Day. What we're really doing, though, is pressing the clay like this. I'm not pinching. What can happen if you use that movement is that the wall of the pinch pot can become very thin, and then it's likely to be weak and crumble and all that stuff that's hard to repair. We want to keep it relatively thick by using a movement more like this, okay? So I am going to press and rotate, press and rotate, and I'm going to keep following this process. As that opening gets a little bit bigger, you can actually use other fingers if that helps you. Now, another thing that I notice sometimes when students make pinch pots is they kind of forget about the base in there. And so what'll happen is there'll be a big, huge, thick, heavy piece of clay kind of at the bottom, and then the top will be the only part that's been sculpted into a pinch pot. So as you're doing this, you're going to want to think about getting that area in the base also pressed out. And it's also going to have the benefit of making your dish a little bit bigger. So I am going to keep pressing this out until all of it feels like it's about that thick. Here's my process. Now that I have a pinch pot with an even edge, see, it's all about the same. And if I feel down here, I can tell that it's about the same down here. I'm ready to turn this into a heart shape. So if you think about a heart, there is a pinch down at the base. Now, one thing you may have noticed me just doing is pressing this down because this is going to be a candy dish or some sort of dish. It's actually helpful to have this base be flat. So I'm just pressing it down a little bit. And then I'm going to make that pinch that you might see on the bottom of a heart. And then I'm going to do the same thing here at the top. Try and get that heart shape. Now your heart may be a little bit lopsided. Maybe one side's a little bit bigger than the other. And that's all okay. All of these little hearts are going to be very charming. And because we don't want to overhandle our clay, it's actually better just to kind of go with whatever you get than to try and start over and risk your clay getting all dried out and harder to work with. All right, so that looks pretty cute. The next step is to smooth this heart. If you look at it right now, you can see that there's parts that are starting to get dried out. There's little divots where my fingernail hit it. This part is looking kind of rippled, and so we want this to be a smooth finish. Now, you can, if your clay is still pretty moist, you may not need much water to get a smooth finish. For that reason, I often suggest just using 2 fingers rather than getting your whole hand wet. If we get this too wet, it's not going to hold its shape. Using my 2 fingers, I can go along the edge and smooth out all those wrinkles. I'm going to be able to go in here and smooth that out as well. And what it's going to do is create a really high quality finish so that when I paint, it's probably going to look like a much bigger kid made it. It's going to be so smooth and nice. So let's go ahead and take a moment to smooth our hearts. That this heart is smoothed down, and I do want to mention that sometimes the time lapse makes it appear like my process is really fast, and so you might think, oh, it only takes 30 seconds to do this, but I probably spent at least 5 to 10 minutes smoothing this out, and I probably could even go back and continue to work on it a little bit more. So this is going to take a little while. Once you have a nice smooth finish, then you have an option available to you. You've got a couple of tools. If you would like, you can add some texture to your heart. Now, when you use these tools, you do have to be gentle because we want the texture just to leave an imprint. We don't want to use these tools and actually slice through the clay, especially because we're trying to make a dish that's going to hold something. And so we don't want there to be holes or gaps in the heart. So, for example, I could take the heart and use the tip of this little square-shaped toothpick, and I could add a little textured line with squares. Now you'll notice that I'm being careful about this. I'm trying to space them out evenly because I want my designs to enhance the heart I don't want my designs to be so complicated or overdone that it actually takes away from the heart. So I'm going to take a moment and continue to add this texture. As mentioned before, I'm keeping my design simple, just that little row of squares. Some other options that you might be able to do, you can create lines if you want to do something like stripes with this popsicle stick. If you prefer a circle shape, kind of like polka dots instead of the square, you can actually use a colored pencil and press that end piece, the circular part or the tip, to get polka dots. You could also just leave it smooth and do all of your designs with paint. So that is up to you. Once your heart is fired or dried, you're ready to add some paint. Now, traditionally, we might glaze a ceramic piece, but you can also finish it with acrylic paint. I really like these peachy colors. These happen to be available in the classroom. If you're at home doing this project, you can also create a peachy color. The way that you do it is by making a tint. And when we make a tint, we use white to create a lighter value of a regular hue or color. So in this case, orange plus white makes a peachy color. So I would start with some white, and then I could add a bit of orange, and mix that together to see kind of where I'm at. That reminds me of like a creamsicle color. So that's how you could get peach. If you wanted to get a light pink color, more of a pastel pink, you could add white to your pink. To get a lighter lavender color, you could add white plus the purple to get a tint there. Our hearts are likely going to need 2 layers to get a nice smooth finish. It's possible that it won't, depending on the color that you choose, but that is what I'm guessing. So I'm going to start by painting the inside of my heart with this darker peachy color, and then the outside of the heart with a lighter peachy color, and then I'm going to come back to that a second time. Now that's what my first layer or coat of paint looks like. If you're careful on this first layer, you may not need to go back, but I'd like you to just double check with me, or you could ask your mom or dad if you think you have good coverage. We're looking to have a nice smooth finish without a bunch of Swiss cheese. I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll add some designs if you choose. The last step in this project is to consider any kind of embellishments that you would like to have on your heart dish. You can see here in the picture, you could certainly do a little kawaii type cute face. You can also just add a design that you would like to, or you could keep it simple and blank. I like the idea of polka dots again, so I'm going to be using my Q-tips to just add some polka dots to the center of the dish. Well, the only thing left to do on this project is to use your little dish. You could certainly put some little treats in there. Another idea I had was to write some little mini notes of encouragement, or maybe little tiny coupons that you could give to someone in your family to share some love and kindness this Valentine's Day. Thanks for joining me.